And time now to take a look at what's been making headlines across the world. And for that, I'm joined in the studio by Alison Sargent. Hello, Alison.
Hey, Annette.
And there's much focus on French politics today, and this after several major candidates have launched their presidential election campaigns.
Yes, and we can start with Anne Hidalgo, the mayor of Paris, widely expected to get the nomination for the Socialist Party. Libération's headline here today is a pun, Ici c'est Paris, which is a take on the Paris football team's slogan, This is Paris. Here, though, you'll notice that there is no S, so it's a Paris as in a gamble. And it's a gamble because Anne Hidalgo has the significant challenge of reviving the Socialist Party as the leading force on the left. Libération points out that her poll numbers, though, are barely better than Benoît Hamon's were back in 2017 when the Socialists got destroyed in the election. The paper also says that she's going to have to convince voters that she, quote, knows the sunken paths of the French countryside as well as the grand boulevards of Paris. And for that reason, Le Monde, as they describe it, says that Hidalgo is in the de-Parisianization stage of her candidacy. That's why she made this campaign announcement in Normandy, of course, showing that she's speaking to all of France, not just to people in the capital.
Heading outside of the periphery, I assume, Alison.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, another woman who's going to be running for the presidency, of course, is the far-right leader Marine Le Pen, who also launched her campaign this weekend.
Yeah, she set the stage for a bitter 2022 presidential election campaign. That's according to the Financial Times. The paper writes that she launched a blistering attack on Emmanuel Macron, whom she called arrogant. She also vowed to restore law and order to what she called France's narco housing estates and Talibanized zones, where allegedly, she says, French laws are not being applied. A very typical Marine Le Pen language there. Now, she is France's best-known far-right figure internationally, but as Politico explains, she has a new rival in the far-right TV personality, Éric Zemmour. Now, Politico reports that leaders of the national rally are extremely nervous that Zemmour is going to make a political bid and split the far-right vote. They say Le Pen's image is getting a bit stale after all these years, while Zemmour is constantly getting attention for his controversial statements. He has a more active online fan base. The article does point out, though, that having him in the race could also work in Marine Le Pen's favor as long as she does make it through to that second round. That's because Zemmour will have drawn out extra voters from the far right who would then shift their votes over to Le Pen.
It's really shaping up to be a fascinating election campaign, isn't it, Alison? It's certainly not going to be a two-horse race, as many people were predicting. But of course, in the meantime, President Macron has yet to declare that he's going to rerun for election. But his political allies are also endorsing him, including one very interesting candidate.
Yes, this is his former Prime Minister, Edouard Philippe. There was a lot of speculation before he endorsed Macron that he himself was going to make a bid for the presidency, maybe give Macron a bit of a challenge. As we read here in Le Parisien, though, Edouard Philippe gave that much-awaited clarification that he will be supporting Macron in next year's election. Meanwhile, L'Opinion is speculating on how Emmanuel Macron is going to frame his push for re-election, what his arguments are going to be, his strategy. That's the idea of this cartoon from CAC. We see him deciding here which path he's going to take. He doesn't want to end up like his predecessor, who we also see there, François Hollande, who hit a dead end, did not run for a second term. L'Opinion reports that Macron seems likely to present himself as a candidate of reason and scientific rationality and emphasize the way that he handled the COVID-19 pandemic.
Now, next to an amazing sports story that occurred over the weekend, and of course that is that British tennis player, the young tennis star who won the US Open on Saturday.
She's just 18 years old, Emma Raducanu. She's the first qualifying player to ever win a Grand Slam, meaning she didn't get into the tournament based on her rank. She had to qualify in pre-tournament matches. The Guardian writes that with her talent, charisma, and online engagement with fans, she could become Britain's first billion-dollar sports star. Now, Raducanu was congratulated by the Queen, and she's expected to be given a royal medal for her victory called a gong in the UK. Hence the Daily Mail's headline here, now for the gong. Some, though, have been pointing out the irony of this enthusiasm for Emma Raducanu coming from right-wing tabloids. And that's because, as the New York Times explains, Raducanu really embodies the exuberant diversity of British society. She was born in Canada to parents who are from Romania and China. The New York Times calls her victory, quote, a tacit repudiation of the anti-immigration fervor that fueled the Brexit vote in 2016. The paper also notes that it was sort of a redemption after the heartbreaking defeat of England's soccer team in the Euro final earlier this summer. So football did not come home, Annette, but tennis did.
It certainly did. And we're going to end with a great little story about another upcoming cycling champion from Scotland.
That's right. This 12-year-old Scottish boy tried to race professional cyclists during the Tour of Britain. His name is Xander Graham, and he rode down the sidewalk on his bike, racing past the professional cyclists for a short stretch of the race. It made the riders laugh, and they did eventually catch up with him. You see here one Dutch cyclist handed him a water bottle. The Dutch cycling team ended up sort of adopting him as somewhat of a mascot. They gave him a signed jersey. They gave him a tour of their bus. Maybe someday he'll get to join the race for real, but in the meantime, it was a very good way to get everyone's attention.
Indeed. Thanks for that, Alison.